Hey guys, Jared here again. We're talking about the being a CNC machinist, a tool maker, tool and die maker. My last couple videos, we talked about is it worth getting into the trade from a more financial standpoint, and then we've also talked a little bit about what does it take to get started in it. Do you have to go get some education, those kind of things. Now I think I want to talk a little about what you do when you actually start working in a machine shop and how it goes. So when I started back in the 90s, pretty much everybody I worked with was of the older generation. I would say most of the guys that I worked with were at least 10 plus years older than me. And there were many guys that were, boomer older generation, like real old guys. And the one thing I learned really quickly is that, in my experience anyway, they really don't like the younger guys right away. I mean, they start out kind of not liking you. I hate to tell you, but that's just the way it is. They just, they have a hard time, I guess. You in other words, you really have to you've got to earn their time. And what do I mean by that? Like, I'm not saying you got to kiss their ass, that's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is, like, you've got to be respectful. You got to, like, kind of just keep your mouth shut and just, obviously not all the time, like, ask questions, but. And another big thing, I think, especially for me, was like working with like tool makers. Like, man, they expect you to like absorb and like remember the stuff that they tell you. Like, if you go back and like keep asking them the same question over and over again, that like they're gonna light you up for that. Like, at least the guys I used to work with. I mean, maybe that doesn't happen anymore, but like, so like maybe keeping a little notebook and like. I think when they see that you're like taking notes about what they're telling you and stuff like that, like they notice stuff like that, and they notice like your mannerisms, like, they kind of, when you start in a machine shop, like, especially like when you walk in there, like everybody's kind of looking at you and eyeballing you and stuff, and they're like, who's this guy? And, and then as the days and weeks go on and stuff, especially the older generation, they just kind of watch you a little bit. They're watching in the background, just kind of watching how you carry yourself and noticing like what how your work habits and things like that. And they're just kind of watching you and paying attention. And when you think they're not looking at you, they're noticing every little thing that you're doing and stuff like that. And they're starting to kind of formulate their opinions about you and whatnot. But I think eventually, there'll be a guy or two who'll come up and say, hey man, I noticed you're doing this, or I noticed you're doing that. And, when they make a little chat with you and kind of get to know you a little bit, and maybe they give you a little pointer or something like that. But it was, for me, a lot about like earning the respect or gaining the rapport with them before they would open up to you and like really start like putting, taking the time with you, things like that. So, and then the next biggest thing I can say for sure is to, you want to get around the older generation and just like make friends with the old guys in the shop, because man, they've got so much knowledge that they're holding on to. Like, if you can like get in good with them and I'm not saying like, again, I'm not saying you got to like totally follow them around and kiss their ass and everything, but like, if you just, act respectful around them and like listen to what they say and like don't have your phone out and like, trying to like look at a text while they're talking to you, stuff like that. I mean, that's like really annoying to the older generation. Like, they'll just turn off and they'll just write you off if you're doing stuff like that. Like, I mean, I get it, you know, the newer generation, I mean, that's kind of the norm now, is like people got their phones out and stuff like that, and they're looking at stuff. But like, act like you want to hear what they have to say, and like hear them out, and like, you know, take what you can take out of it, because like they've got a lot of knowledge to pass on. And it's like, that's where like I got all my knowledge from, was from older guys like taking the time to like show me some tricks and stuff like that. And those things, I just kind of filed them away in the knowledge base, and like little by little, and all the different places that I worked at, there was always one or two older guys, and I would always like kind of gravitate towards the older guys, and like, you know, get their perspective on stuff. And like I would, and not only that, but like even just watching how they do stuff, like you can pick up things just by watching how other guys work and what they do. Like I still do that to this day. Like I watch, you know, I see somebody doing something cool, and I'm like, wow, how's he doing that? And then I'm watching, like, okay, I see how he's doing that, you know. And then I kind of file that away, and then the next time I go to, maybe I got to do that job, then maybe I give that guy's trick a whirl and see if it works. And like usually a lot of times, because I mean, a lot of times like somebody could just be doing something routine, but like they might have a cool way of doing it, and you look over and see it, and you're like, wow, that's awesome, you know. Like you don't even have to say anything, you just look over and see how they're doing it and notice it, and you're like, oh, okay, I see how, you know. You don't always have to have a conversation with somebody to like learn something, but like but I noticed like where I work, there are some younger guys, and they like to come up and, you know, ask a lot of questions like that, like, what do you think, how should I do this, or what do you think about this, or, you know, stuff like that. And I'm just always about like, no matter what, I just take the time and like try to help them out and like show them stuff, you know, because like it was a struggle for me like coming up through the trade, because of the fact of a lot of the older generation really didn't want to share their knowledge with you, because they looked at you like competition. Like if I teach him something, like I'm taking money off of my plate. And you know, I mean, it yes and no. I mean, I can see where somebody would get that kind of attitude, but I don't feel that way. Especially now, I don't feel that way, and I don't think I ever really have been that way. Like I've always just, that's just, I guess, in my nature to like try to help people and stuff like that. So I'm always like willing to like go out of my way, and like even sometimes when the person isn't, you know, doesn't really take what I say and do anything with it, you know, or whatever. But that's definitely something, like you know, surround yourself with knowledgeable people, and then absorb their knowledge, and file it away in your memory banks, and write it down. Take really good notes. I still think that's valid, you know, like that might be an old school thing, but I think taking notes is very valid, because years later, like you'll find yourself going through those notes when you go to another job, and you remembered like you did some kind of thing like 10 years ago or whatever, and you're like, how did I do that? And then you go back and you pull your notebook out, and it's right there how you did it, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. You know, so like taking notes is like super huge. And then again, like being respectful, and, you know, not kissing butt, but like being respectful, paying attention, and getting around the older generation and learning from them is a key thing. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna leave it there, and we'll probably talk some more about this subject in future videos. So you guys take care. We'll see you on the next one.